In the late 1980s, one of the most famous poltergeist cases in the history of the United States occurred. In a small bungalow in San Pedro, California, a young woman would experience one of the most documented and violent hauntings in modern history. The case is truly unique in a number of ways, probably most notably the entity attacking researchers investigating the phenomenon. In this video, we'll discuss this case as well as compare it to some other paranormal cases involving violent poltergeists. In time, this well-documented and incredible story has come to be known as the San Pedro Haunting or the Jackie Hernandez Poltergeist. In November 1988, 23-year-old Jackie Hernandez left her husband and along with her 2-year-old son Jamie moved into a small bungalow at 593 West 11th Street in San Pedro, California. Life was hard for the young single mother as she was not only working multiple jobs but pregnant and also attending school. In addition to this, Jackie was going through a messy divorce with her husband Al. Despite the hard times, Jackie was optimistic about the future and believed that life would get easier. However, things were about to become much more difficult. As soon as Jackie and her son moved into the home, strange things started to occur. Like many paranormal cases, things started slow and escalated. In the beginning, Jackie heard unexplainable sounds, such as the high-pitched screeching from inside her walls. She also heard strange noises from the attic, like someone was walking around. Like so many other hauntings, she heard disembodied voices. Objects disappeared and reappeared in other parts of the home. In addition, Jackie reported feeling as if someone or something was watching her. On more than one occasion, she caught glimpses of something out of the corner of her eye. As Jackie was starting to notice the paranormal activity was increasing, she would be lucky to be able to talk with one of her neighbors, a woman named Susan, about what was happening. Susan served as emotional support for Jackie, not only with the entity, but also her messy divorce. Even more importantly, Susan would become witness to the events, letting Jackie know she wasn't crazy and leading her to eventually start documenting what was happening. Early on, Susan informed the landlord about what was happening in the home, and he suggested calling in priests to do an exorcism. When the priest arrived, their assessment of the situation was not what Susan and Jackie had hoped for. The priests declared that Jackie was possessed by the devil and that the home was not haunted. As a result, the priest called Child Protective Services to try and get her son moved into foster care. Jackie had to prove to Child Protective Services that she wasn't on drugs and that she was fit to care for her child. Soon enough, Jackie would have her second child, Samantha. After the birth of Jackie's second child, paranormal activity would only increase in the house. One night, after bringing in groceries, Jackie looked at the fridge and was stunned to see the magnetic letters had been moved. Even more frightening was the message. It stated, "Get the hell out." Jackie double-checked the locks and windows, and no one could have gotten in. Later that night, with her kids asleep and the house dead quiet, Jackie began to hear raspy breathing. She got up from her bed and followed the sound to her son's bedroom. There, horrified Jackie would be stunned to see a creepy old man sitting on her son's bed. As Jackie gasped, the entity looked at her and stared with its glowing red eyes. The activity and behavior of the entity after this event seemed to get much more worse and violent. On one occasion, Susan came over to the house, and both her and Jackie heard a loud crash from the kitchen. The poltergeist had torn a painting off the wall, leaned it up against the sink, and pulled out the nails from it. The nails were then placed point side up on the floor for Jackie or Susan to step on. Another scary event happened when one night Jackie was cooking with Susan and some other friends. That night, she and the others would see several orbs fly through the kitchen. When she grabbed her camera and was about to take a picture, she saw an old man staring at her through the window. In addition to her friends seeing the paranormal activity, other neighbors and babysitters experienced strange events and witnessed it as well. Jackie reported that some sort of blood-like substance came down from the walls, objects were hovering around by themselves, and that also she was finding pools of blood around the house at all hours of the day. With so much happening and Jackie feeling overwhelmed, Susan suggested reaching out to paranormal investigator Dr. Barry Taff. Taff was no stranger to the paranormal. He was the author of a number of books and also the associate director of parapsychology at UCLA. In addition, he had investigated the case of Doris Bither, a case involving an extremely violent poltergeist in 1974 in Culver City, California. The haunting eventually served as a basis for a Hollywood movie named The Entity in 1982. In investigating the incident, Taft brought along a camera crew who would document the home. The first time the crew entered the home, they would know for certain that something paranormal was happening. The attic seemed to be a place of high strangeness, and they heard something running around up there. So cameraman Jeff Wheatcraft volunteered to go up alone and film it. After snapping several photos of orbs floating around, Jeff's camera was snatched off his neck. The terrified cameraman ran quickly down the stairs in an attempt to flee. However, something grabbed him and started strangling him. Jeff was able to break free and finally hustle down the stairs. After a few moments, Jeff and another cameraman ventured back up and would find his camera separated into several pieces. The team would continue to investigate when events took an extremely violent turn for the worst. In September 1989, what happened would be one of the most violent poltergeist attacks in modern history. Jeff once again decided to venture into the attic with another cameraman named Gary. With Jackie, Dr. Taff, and Susan standing below, Gary first climbed down the attic stairs. Then, Jeff began heading down, but suddenly an invisible force grabbed him and pulled him back up. Gary ran up and would be stunned to see that Jeff was hanging by the neck with a clothesline wrapped around a nail high up on the wall. Jeff was in a stunned state and unable to breathe. Gary was able to save him and get him down. At that point, it became clear to Jackie she had to get out. With so much going on in her life, she didn't want to move with young children, but it was obvious the home wasn't safe. Jackie and her kids moved into a trailer outside the city. However, the paranormal activity would not cease. Meanwhile, at the house, Dr. Taff and his team continued studying the entity at the home. Dr. Taff would eventually communicate with it through a Ouija board. The entity communicated it didn't like Jackie and her family and had a special hatred for Jeff as he looked like the man who had murdered him. Jackie and her family would continue to experience paranormal activity for another year or so, with it eventually ending altogether. As mentioned, the case is considered one of the most documented and violent paranormal cases in modern history. One of the biggest questions surround what was this entity. Many believe it was a poltergeist since it followed Jackie and her family to the trailer. Poltergeists have traditionally been described as troublesome entities who haunt a particular person instead of a specific location. Renowned for being the most terrifying and also rarest types of hauntings, poltergeists are often the subject of books and movies. While we are still learning much about what they are exactly, it's clear that these entities are extremely angry and not shy about letting it known. All too often in these cases, the activity starts small, for example, a light turning on by itself, but soon things pick up, and sometimes, like in Jackie's case, things can turn dangerous. It should be said too, these entities seem to haunt individuals going through tough times. Often they target teenage girls, but Jackie was also going through an extremely traumatic and stressful period, making her an easy target. Still, if this was a poltergeist, it raises the question around her seeing the entity. Poltergeists don't typically manifest, and in Jackie's case, she saw it on at least 2 different occasions. This has led many to believe this was some sort of demon. The entity was clearly trying to hurt Jackie and the investigators. Most of the time, poltergeists act like pranksters, moving things around and switching lights on and off. Still, there are cases, of course, where these spirits get violent. All this said, could Jackie and the team just lied or exaggerated the story? It doesn't seem likely, as there were multiple witnesses, including Dr. Taff and his whole team. Some believe that Dr. Taff and his team were unreliable and used sloppy investigative techniques. However, there were still many who saw the strange paranormal activity. How does this violent poltergeist case stack up against others throughout modern history? In Odin, Indiana in the 1940s, an invisible entity, believed to be a poltergeist, lit fires all day long in a home. Still, perhaps the most violent poltergeist is an entity that haunted a family in Pontefract, England in the late 1960s and 70s, known as the Black Monk of Pontefract. This entity tormented a teenage girl in this home, and at one time even grabbed her hair, dragging her up the stairs. The home still operates as a ghost hunting attraction for paranormal investigators. However, the experiences have been terrifying for some. The operator of the house stated that one individual had to be carried out due to what he experienced. According to the owner of the home, several people have given up ghost hunting altogether after going inside the home. Coming back to the Hernandez poltergeist, it truly was a unique case since there were multiple witnesses and documented pictures. In addition, the entity became extremely violent, which isn't unheard of, but is very rare. It's not clear what happened to Jackie and her children after the ordeal, but hopefully they found peace. The home at 593 West 11th Street appears to still be around today. However, it seems the activity died down once the investigation ended.